spot at 11:30.
Yeah, I mean, deep down, I don't know that last minute testimony changes things unless it's actually new testimony or new evidence or a new point or a new fact.
There were a couple of new things that came out between the last meeting in regards to the property where the garbage is staged.
Right.
And so that letter referenced some of those things, and they did. The PUD had more information that Skagit County was looking for in that letter. If it's approvable by the board, I'd like to be on the Zoom and have the chance to comment, to thank them for looking at those, the further information, you know, to extend they did extend their time on this decision, and took time to really look through staff items. And I'd like to thank those commissioners for their consideration and hope that we would behave the same way.
And I agree. And I think regardless of whatever their final answer is, we should probably send a letter saying thank you for your consideration, you know, professional.
Yeah, I don't think today, you know, for public comment, and because it's on the agenda for later and it's closed to public comment, that usually, like, we don't accept public comment on something that's on the agenda, and I don't know how Skagit County does it. So maybe the best thing to do is to give a thank you from Klickitat County for all your time and consideration that you've given, and keep it high level and fuzzy and warm.
Yep, I agree. So I can do that at 11:30.
Yep. Or check out whatever you need to get on it at 11:30.
To make sure I get on it.
Yep. I did not see trucked potable water on the Thursday workshop agenda. Were we gonna try to sneak it in on Thursday, or were we gonna try to sneak it in today? Or it sounds like you need to do a half day on Thursday.
Yes, I would like to if I can.
So you want to,
Well, the only question was, we had done the document, redrafted the document, but Mr. Kavanaugh was waiting on the official, yeah, it looks good, before he submits it to the. Oh, well, okay.
has he got anything back to him?
Okay. As long as it's over there, that's, we'll see it when it gets back, I guess. Okay.
Right, and it's a policy, so.
Hey, Blake decision DocuSign, that comes off.
So you want to be done by noon on Thursday, or what?
Perfect. I need just about a half-hour travel time for a meeting at 1.
Okay,
So I can be done by 12:30 and out of here. And if not, I can rearrange.
No, that's
No,
fine.
we can-
Let's try 12 or 12:15, just
Okay.
so you have plenty of time.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
What is that? Is that the pit or the mill site?
No,
Thing?
it's actually,
You don't have to tell me if you don't want to, if that's not
No.
what it is, by the way.
yeah. Well, no, it's public knowledge. It's a salmon recovery project in Swell Canyon, where the landowners had some questions. The surrounding landowners had questions about the pending project. And so
project is it?
Rattlesnake Gulch and Lover's Lane, their
Mhm.
culvert replacement.
That culvert.
That's went through the gamut of salmon recovery with everybody touching it, but the landowners there still had concerns, and we'd been through several conversations. My best bet was to get everybody in the same room. And when I had a chat with David Lindley yesterday, he already had them scheduled for that with Margaret Newman. So I offered to pop in, and that would put everybody in the same room at the same time, and we would be just create that open communication so we can be.
And that's with the upstream neighbors or downstream neighbors?
Well, upstream, I believe all of them
Okay.
are upstream. And I think they just want to review the project to ensure they're fire safety and access safety and those things. So
Mhm.
if we're all in the room at the same time, then their questions are answered.
I did notice there was a Water Conservancy Board meeting tonight. Are any commissioners planning to attend that?
Wasn't on my agenda. But you're welcome to go.
Wasn't on mine either. I don't know that much about it.
Might be a good thing to go and learn. Daryl Oslin should be bringing an application. So if you do want to know about the Water Conservancy Board, it might be a really good meeting to go and learn about the process of what it actually takes to transfer water rights in Washington State.
So I don't know who's on that board even. I know Craig Stevens.
I can answer that for you in
You've got the
about
list.
5 seconds. Craig Stevens, Scott Andrews. Craig Stevens is not a water right holder. Scott Andrews is a water right holder. Matt Graves is a water right holder. Jeffrey Andrews is not a water right holder. Position number 6 was Dave McClure, and position number 10 or 7 is vacant, which is the alternate.
I thought Dave McClure's was the alternate too.
All I see is what we have on our county
It-
website.
Isn't Craig Stevens on the board?
Correct. He's position
Okay.
number 1.
Okay.
Yeah, so.
Oh, sorry, and Kevin Krebs too is
It's
a
a
water right holder.
5-member
Okay.
board. So these are both alternates. 6 and 7 are both alternates.
The document that you're looking at, is it on the county commissioner website?
It's posted on the front door,
Oh.
the agenda and, this?
Yes.
Yes, this is on county commissioners under volunteers or
Okay,
whatever, boards and commissions. They changed, it was volunteers needed and now
Okay.
it's boards and commissions has 4 different things in there. One of them is who's serving on what board.
It's on your shared drive as well. Go to the shared drive under appointments. And then you go down to whichever board or commission you will look at, just click on that,
okay.
and then you find membership lists.
Huh.
In Word doc, so that's available there too.
I just have one update. We held our first meeting of the new Bi-State Bridge Authority yesterday. And the group members appointed me the first vice chair. So that just added to my workload pretty significantly.
I
So
was trying not to smell.
I'll be the first vice chair for the first 3 months, and then Mike Fox will be the first vice chair for the next 3 months. And then in the beginning of 24, then we can open it up. But that was what the CFA, the Commission Formation Agreement, required. And it was news to me that, because I thought I was going to get the second 3 months.
Do you have a chairperson?
So the first vice chair is the chairperson.
Okay.
But we're considered vice chairs so that there's one from Oregon, one from Washington.
Oh,
So they'll
okay.
always be vice chairs and they'll alternate. Next year, you'll be vice chair, or in essence, chair for 1 year, then you'll be the vice the next year. And then it'll alternate back and forth between Oregon and Washington.
Okay.
Yeah, they spend a lot of time.
Is it always gonna be you or the
No,
Oregon commissioner, or could it be any of the
it can be
appointees
any of the appointees after
on January 1st?
on January 1st.
Got it.
Yes. But we're gonna have 5 different committees and I mean, in essence, we have to start a business from scratch. And so you've got governance and bylaws and everything and marketing and communication.
Is it gonna be those vice chairs that are holding all those committees, or are you gonna designate them as like subcommittees where position number 3 is doing this committee? and
So
holding their own little subcommittee kind of a thing, or you all happen to go to every one of those committee things?
no, it's going to be, most people serve on 1 or 2 committees.
Right.
That based on their expertise and their background and
Right.
everything. Though the vice chairs are likely going to be expected to be seeing most of it. Well, because we have to design the agendas and everything else. And so, yeah, it's gonna be a lot of work for the next few months.
Lucky you. I'm feeling better and better about an insurance conference next week.
Yeah, I hope so. You get to go and drink and play golf. and all
No,
that stuff.
that's not at this one. That was at the one the one that I recommended we cancel. No golf, no cigars, no whiskey. Those days are over. This is just 8 hours talking about insurance every day,
For 3 days.
3 days,
Oh, wow.
2.5.
Oof.
No, the Club Med party left when we had left that insurance company.
Is this your first one you're gonna go to? That's the 3-day seminar thing?
It's longer than the last one we did, I think was only a day and a half. So it was a day for the regular people and a half day for the board of directors. This one's essentially 2.5. Because we'll be going over pricing and rates coming forward and all that fun and glorious insurance type stuff.
So should we, coming out of this, should we have the estimate of what it's gonna be for next year?
I would think we'll have at least a guess on whether it's 17% or 20%. But in the same regard, I think if we reach out to our fellow commissioners in the insurance company that we left, we will find their rates went up last year, the same percentage as this group's rates went up.
Right.
In this group, if it goes up 17%, they're gonna be 17, maybe 18. I mean, it's kind of the same scenario. There could be some smaller changes. And I think there will be to what counts as a claim and what constitutes a claim and things like that, but there'll be discussion there. Over
Like if
things
it's,
that.
if it's under what we just pay out, then it's not considered a claim.
Hopefully, because
Oh.
that was one of the concerns a lot of the counties had, is you get dinged for a claim, even though the insurance.
Even though there was no claim.
So you had a lot of people not reporting claims, so that if you did report 5 broken windshields, you had a lot of claims, you know.
Mhm.
And to me, a claim is something that has substantial value, not
Right.
some kind of.
Where they
chump
actually
change.
pay something out.
Well, I'm curious if they go into some kind of a ranked claim system, or if they just make it, if it's below your deductible, it doesn't count as a claim. I personally would love to see a ranked claim. So if you pay out a $2 million, it gets 100% credit of 1. You know, if you only paid out 25,000 or something, then maybe it's only 25% of 1 full credit. So you get some kind of ranking.
For
that
your
you're-
multiplier.
Yeah, some kind of multiplier in there that would give it a more, the hard part is you get places like Island County that gets hit hard by, you know, one person getting hit in a crosswalk or something and pay out as a $8 million claim. And, you know, you only got one, but boy, it's a big one. So if you, that's I guess the good part about having a pool is you're all sharing in the, if one county's really bad at their insurance, you're all paying a higher premium because they're getting a lower premium. We're not a county that has a lot of claims, so I want to try to hope that we, number one, continue to do that, but we're also not subsidizing counties that are lacking in their responsibilities to maintain their claims at a low rate. So it'll be interesting. Insurance is, I don't know, it's kind of weird. I find it kind of exciting. Anyway. Yeah. That is in the lovely city of Spokane. And then there's one in the fall in, I believe, Anacortes, which is North Puget Sound area, is the fall conference, if I remember right. Which that's the other difference between this one and last one. The last one, most of their stuff was on Zoom. They had one conference at the casino in Spokane a year, and this one is 3 conferences and many more meetings. I did go to the Southwest Washington Workforce Board of Directors over the last, I don't know, week, or maybe 2 now. I might not have updated you. Nothing really to report, nothing really changing. They did do the preliminary budget, which is about the same. The only active part we have is actually work source.
Mhm.
We don't necessarily see a lot from Southwest Washington Workforce because we've received a lot in the past, so it's time to let everybody else get their fair share before we get our fair share back again.
Was Richard there?
No, it's just board of directors meeting,
Okay.
which is just 4 commissioners, which 2 of them were new. Klickitat was, well, actually they were all new. Klickitat was new. Skamania County was the new commissioner. They had changed commissioners. The commissioner that used to sit on it is no longer sitting on it, so their new guy is. And the board chair, since it's mainly Yakima, it's kind of a Yakima County thing, is actually the new Yakima County Commissioner, which I was impressed, very, very smart individual so far.
Who's the new Yakima Commission?
Can't think of his name off the top of my head. He replaced the,
Kyle. Is it Kyle?
it could be, yeah. The one person didn't run for reelection, the elderly gentleman. And this guy took over, but he seems very gung ho. Knowledgeable so far. You could tell that this was his first meeting on this board as a board of director, but he did his homework. But yeah, it was other than me and him, it was kind of crickets because everybody else was brand new and didn't know what they were doing. So it flowed. It'll be back to more active as we bring those people up to speed.
So we have on our agenda for the 18th, well, at least it's on mine, Whistler project meeting with Benton County. Would we like to discuss that? It sounds like the board might be interested in going a different direction with the
That's
Whistler
on the
thing.
18th.
Yeah, it's what it's showing on my screen,
I don't have it. Must be on your calendar, not on the
on my calendar. I think
BoCC
I
calendar.
wrote it down when they came in.
Oh, when
Discuss it.
Richard, well, either that or Richard said, I think Richard said in his last update, there's this Whistler meeting.
Yeah,
So yeah, that maybe that's why you
that's all.
jotted it on your calendar.
that's, on Tuesday, the 18th. So I didn't know if we wanted to send anyone with directions or if we wanted to have a discussion about Whistler or what you guys want to do. But it sounds like there's discussion that needs to be had with regards to it. Or more discussion.
Yeah, I think we have a lot to learn about it. And I know there was some discussion about lead, but looking at where we've came from and what we've handled in the past with water projects and WIRA and the way where that's located, it does, in my mind, make sense for us to be the lead and stay the lead. Benton County does not have a big as investment as we do in the past for water projects and for fish recovery, or for the planning or for the staff. We have it. So I think that's how that relationship evolved, was because of that.
Well, I don't disagree under the old leadership of that department, but that leadership's not there, and I'm not sure that Richard is up to speed. And with all we have going, my concern of transferring the lead was because with all we have going here locally in that department and with the changes and with whatever, do we want to stack one more thing on somebody's plate? Or should we, it's Benton County. I understand where you're coming from there. But at this point, they probably have far more knowledge about the actual system and what's going on there than our current person does. And so I look at it as, how many man hours or woman hours or whatever you want to call it is going to be into that project. And since we already are having staffing issues down there, that to me is one more thing they could at least take off their plate, albeit temporarily, until we can get up to staffing levels so that's why I was broaching that idea. I still think it's a good idea, but if the board doesn't choose to go that way, I support the board's decision.
My question would be, I think we need further conversation about it, because to see how wide, how deep, how big, and where we're at with it, because I would hate to abandon so much done in the past and so much financially spent for consulting and stuff for the past, to abandon that or let it languish. Maybe if we can have conversations of where we actually are in that project, and do we have time? Do we have 6 months to reconfigure, and where are we going to put staff?
Well,
there
that
to
was
keep
my
that
other
going?
concern, is because it sounded like, and correct me if I'm wrong, when they gave, not staff, but when Ecology or whoever it was gave their Whistler presentation, they were talking about how much work is going to be taking place in the next 6 months, and this next 6 months is critical. And we're not gonna have our staff member for a lot of the next 6 months. So you realize by keeping that as the lead, there is no lead because they're not gonna be here for 3.5.
Well,
So-
this is a, almost a $200 million project. That would be, that we've already spent millions of dollars on.
We have not, the state has.
It's funneled through us.
Correct, but
It's not.
I
county
want to make,
dollars.
right, I want to make sure anybody listening knows that the county taxpayers have not spent millions of dollars on this project. Well,
But the county has. But we've been reimbursed for it.
correct.
And so I guess the thing is there's only one person that I know of that, and Benton County doesn't have anybody that's, up on the project. There's only one person, and this board voted to remove that person from any and all appointed positions. My thought would be is if we can't find somebody to take over that position, the best thing would be to do what we did like with Kurt, and that's bring him on to finish special projects that were their special projects. We have multi-million-dollar investment, and I don't know why you'd want to not do that.
Well, not only looking at what was the past of it and where we're at now, it's the tipping point of what that's going to do in the future. And we brought ourselves very close to that being really, really valuable for ag and resources in the future for ourselves. So I would like to have a bigger, broader conversation about that to make sure we do the right thing. We also need to, talking about the board appointees, we need to reconsider or look at the Water Conservancy Board and what to do with it and where to take it. It isn't the same as the other boards that we simply manage. It's a little more convoluted. It's more of a independent board that is a partnership with ecology, and it has its own RCW and the way that it functions. It has its own financial way that it functions. I think we need to take a deeper dive into what is that board, how is it functioning, and now how do we move it to the future, which means the same thing. Mr. McClure was that crucial part. They have a meeting this evening. How will they continue their meeting this evening? He was their administrator. And that's a different discussion, I believe, too, also saying, okay, then being on Citizens Review Committee as administrator, yes, we can say, but I don't know with Water Conservancy Board how that functions. So I think each one of these are going to have to be carefully looked at one by one, so we understand them and know where we're going and say, okay, it's the desire of this board that it functions this way, whether Mr. McClure stays or goes, but we need to keep these functioning for the people of this county. So,
I don't disagree with the importance of the Water Conservancy Board, and I don't disagree with the importance to our constituents on water rights going forward, or potentially gain of water rights going forward out of the Swissler project. Those are not my concerns. It just comes down to discussion from this board on who manages or oversees those issues for the county, as the person that used to oversee them is no longer employed by the county. So we need someone on each project to at least oversee each project, whether it's the same person or whether it's different people. That's all I'm saying.
Lori's gonna zoom in 5 minutes, so I would make a motion to recess for lunch.
Yep,
and I'll second.
all right. I will turn my mic on so people online can hear me. And we will start with Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America. Thank you, everyone. Business agenda, the only change I have is the discussion we had this morning to make an add-on to change our public hearing for the solar land use from August 8th to August 1st. The soonest time staff thought they could make it happen.
And so we talked with staff upstairs on whether or not they feel.
I have not had any discussions, no.
Mochi doesn't get back.
You have to turn your mic on if you're gonna.
So Mochi won't be back yet,
I
correct?
think she comes back on the 1st.
Yeah.
But the other problem is if we have ours on the 8th, at the same time FSEC is having theirs on the 8th, our citizens don't get to partake in both
Could we change the time on the 8th?
and just not have an evening meeting. I'm still, I would rather do it earlier than later.
Could we do it? Could we do the evening meeting on the 7th and then our meeting on the 8th and then the day meeting on the 8th?
I don't want to drag it out. I would like to do it earlier.
I'm just trying to make
We
sure
can
that.
do
our-
a lot of things, but I don't feel stalling it is the right choice to serve the public. There's no amount of debate or argument that you can argue to make me think that stalling it would be in the best serving the public. So you're welcome to continue, but I won't be engaging. I think the earliest time is the better. People don't like the can kicked down the road forever.
So I guess the question I have is, we haven't talked to staff on whether or not they feel confident that in doing the hearing themselves without the planning director present, who is overseas. And I thought we set this time so that the planning director could come back so that then the planning director would have time to set up and prepare for the public hearing. And so we're making a change from what we've already decided, and I'm trying to understand the why.
I've already said, because I believe it's in the best interest of the public to do it earlier.
What role does staff play in that meeting, Jake? What do you see their role in that meeting? How do you see that meeting going? So if Mochi weren't there, what would be missing?
You mean usually there's a staff report,
Okay,
an update. And then there's the discussion. And then there's questions of staff that comes up. And I don't know of any other staff that would probably feel comfortable answering all the questions that come up during discussion.
Well, I would then interrupt and say that staff does do a brief update before a public hearing, pretty much saying why we're here in a public hearing, and that's it. And not always is staff doing that. Sometimes the board chair does that, which you've seen in recent months. Now, yes, it could come up that during the public hearing, this board has questions of staff, and if staff isn't here, the board can always choose to hold the hearing open for a whole nother week if it so chose to get in whatever questions it had. Or 2 weeks or 6 months, if it so chooses. It doesn't have to close the public hearing on said date if it has specific questions that can't be answered.
so is your goal to capture public testimony?
My goal,
Yes, in this meeting. What's your goal?
I guess I would say my goal is to not screw up in front of the general public by taking so long to hold our public hearing that FSEC makes its determination before we make our final determination, because I believe some people in this county are stalling on purpose. And the sooner we can get to whatever determination we're going to make, the better for the public.
I'm assuming you're referencing me,
I'm not representing anybody.
because who else would have the ability to stall, sir?
If we hold that meeting, then are you committing to be presenting the meeting, presiding over the meeting
Sure.
and in place of staff is what I'm
I
saying.
will give the staff update at the beginning of the meeting, just
And-
like I have for other public
And then
hearings.
coordinate maybe with planning staff to see where their input is with this. Go talk to them and see how they feel about
Mhm.
being at the meeting in place of, because I agree that it's really unfortunate that we always have such a short time with AFSEC, but again, we're bumping against that border.
I guess my argument is, what if FSEC decides to hold their meeting on the 8th and they vote at 6:30 that it is consistent, but yet we haven't determined and made our official ruling until 7:30? Whoops.
I would try to remind the chair that what FZEC is determining during their meeting is the land use consistency at the time of the application. We instituted interim emergency zoning after the application was submitted. And so I don't see by trying to do it quicker, how you're going to change anything, because it all comes down to the time of the application submittal, and that's just.
Well, I guess I will say this: we're eating into citizen comment time, trying to approve a business agenda for today. So I would certainly hope that we can approve the business agenda and have our debate on our own time versus the citizens' time.
Do you need a motion or anything?
I need a motion on approval or denial of the business agenda with the add-ons or no add-ons.
I guess, Mr. Chairman, I would make a motion to approve the business agenda with the add-on under new business underneath the quadrant for the discussion on whether or not to change the hearing date for the interim zoning. And then also after 3 o'clock, natural resources wastewater update discussions.
And I'll second.
You didn't mention the actual FSEC agreement that is the official add-on.
And I would also include the add-on, the interagency agreement on the Washington State Energy Facility Site Evaluation Commission in Klickitat County for the purposes of providing reimbursement to Klickitat County for staff review of information related to the Carriger Solar Project effective June 1st, 2023 through June 1st, 2024, with maximum reimbursement not to exceed $50,000.
We have a motion. Do we have a second on that?
Yes.
Okay, we have a motion
Second.
second. Any further discussion on the add-on?
This is under an add-on too. I'll just add it again. As well as an add-on under the discussion for appealing the Department of Ecology's decision to approve the Shoreline Substantial Development Permit and Shoreline Conditional Use Permit SH 2022-03, the Pit Site Trailhead Project.
That was great.
I was gonna say that
Was
one,
it?
that one's a regular agenda.
Oh,
So we'll
sorry.
go with the official motion that's already been made and the official second that's already been made, and we'll say any discussion. Hearing none, all those in favor of approval of the business agenda with the 2 add-ons, 3 add-ons, sorry, as stipulated, say aye.
aye.
Aye, motion passes. No meeting minutes. Moving into citizen comment, and I will publicly apologize to the citizens for eating up some time. With that, we'll go into citizen comment. Citizen comment will be limited to 3 minutes per individual. Please state your name and general location for the record at the start of your testimony. Please try to make sure your testimony is pertinent to county matters or in county matters. And as always, at the end of citizen comment, the commissioners will have a time to have responses. So we'll start with in the room before we go online. Does anybody in the room have citizen comment for the Board of Commissioners today? All right, make sure the little mics are green instead of red and fire away. We have our clock running, Miss Alyssa.
I'm Mike, and this is my wife Teresa. We were here last week to discuss the nuisance board that seems to be progressing. I don't know where that's at right now, but here to set some facts straight that were made in the comments from the commissioner in last week's meeting, and basically they're our name. You were very,
Well, we want to say that we're very disappointed in you, Dan Christopher, with your response to our comment. We, along with 3 other people, filed a nuisance complaint. And in your response, you made some statements that were misleading at best, possibly slanderous. And you stated that when people file code complaints or nuisance complaints, that sometimes they just want you to do it and do what they want because that's what they want. Other times it's because they don't like their neighbor.
I'll tell you right now, I do not know the person to tell you if I like him or dislike him. I just know what's right and what's wrong, what the law says and what the law doesn't say. Whether I like him or dislike him has nothing to do with it. We're not going after anybody for malice, for how they feel or how I feel about them. I'm trying to protect the neighborhood.
And you
That's all
also,
I'm trying to do.
you also stated that sometimes people use the code as a weapon. And then your final statement was this last case bears some of that. We were the only case that day. So we feel that you made those remarks against us.
Right.
And it wasn't right. And it's not true.
Well, I would apologize if you took it that way because that was not my intent, but I can see how you took it that way and I apologize.
And thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Going online, does anybody online have a citizen comment for the Board of Commissioners? Okay, we'll go back in the room. Does anybody else have comment in the room for the Board of Commissioners? Hearing a pause in the room. So if anybody in the room or anybody online has comment for the Board of Commissioners, please raise your hand or unmute yourself or get our attention in any way. Okay, here she comes.
Kathy Moko Goldendale. 2 things. First, Community Days was amazing. A little hot, but amazing. And I mean, downtown was full and courthouse lawn was full, and just there were people everywhere. And the interesting thing, the next morning at about 9:30, I was up and about, so I came into town. You would never know that any of it was even there. I don't know who or how. It all got cleaned up for all the people that were there and everything. I mean, it was really super amazing. Anyway, very successful. Totally different topic. I was just driving around yesterday over to the side of the courthouse, and you know, you've done all the new parking lots and everything, and it's all finished and it's all been, it looks, some of it at least, newly striped, and it really, everything looks really, really good. So just thought I'd compliment you on that. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Anybody else in the room or online have citizen comment for the Board of Commissioners today? Yeah. If you do have citizen comment, please raise your hand or unmute yourself, or I see one hand.
Elmer Eldridge, Goldendale. I'm just curious, in the 8 years that I've halfway attended the commissioners meeting, I've heard at least 6 different complaints in those years, the same things that Thompsons are talking about. And why now is it so complicated? Why, I mean, this issue isn't new. It's been brought up before. So why are you, you know, what is the problem that we have to deal with?
I'm sure I'm going to interrupt you real quick. And please bear with me while I interrupt. I have before me an application for you to sit on the Nuisance Board of Appeals. If you're so wishing to do so, you're going to need to do so with a open mind and not have, hang on, let me finish, please. I'm trying to help you.
I'm not stating an opinion,
So-
I'm asking a question.
So I in your own best interest, I would advise you to be as neutral as possible, so your nomination might actually get approved.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, I'm trying to help. For the Thompsons, that is the man I'm hoping to appoint to be on the Nuisance Board of Appeals. As you can obviously see, he's very law and order, very constitutional, and doesn't like me. So you should be in favor of that. And I'm hoping to get him passed. Well, you should know that there's not a bias that I brought in my crony to do my bidding. Right, but I don't want any opinion of collaboration, or I picked my own choice who's going to do my bidding is my goal in this.
I just hope.
Is it completely outside?
Find people that want to solve problems. That would be
Okay. Any other public comment before the Board of Commissioners? I see online 2662 is unmuted themselves.
Yes, hello. Can I make a comment?
Yes, name and general location for the record, please.
Tracy and Lyle, Washington. And I sent you commissioners an email last week and then this morning, and I'm not sure if you were able to open any attachments, but it's in regard to the address problem in Lyle again. There's legal addresses that aren't connected to a parcel or a lot in the county records. And one of them is 501 Washington Street, which shows up as a West District Court in Lyle, which we all know is not a West District Court. And I'm just hoping that the commissioners can take this serious, because the county is the one that's responsible for the data that goes into the GIS, and they're used in the census, they're used in the FEMA flood maps, they're used in emergency management. And there is not a courthouse, never has been a courthouse in Lyle, and there is not a 501 Washington Street, and that needs to be corrected. So last week when I made the comment of the addresses, Mr. Anderson said that one of the addresses I said that was not a legal address is 520 Washington Street, and Mr. Anderson told me that that was to the Lyle Fire Department, and I just like to tell him that the Lyle Fire Department address is 514 Washington Street, not 520 as shows up on your mapping system. And then the other one is 830 Klickitat Street. It doesn't go to anything, and that is also an address that's legal. But so the postmaster in Lyle told me that the county is responsible for making legal addresses, that the county sends the postmaster the addresses, and she adds them to her database, even though they don't go to a parcel and they don't get mail. And I'm just wondering why this is happening and why it's not corrected. So appreciate you're looking into this. Thank you.
Thank you, Tracy. Staff did have a comment, so I will allow that.
Just wanted to advise the board that
Do we need to fire up that mic there or come forward or something so everybody can hear? That mic is horrible.
Okay, your deputy clerk spent at least half an hour or more with the commenter right now this morning. And this has all been researched. She's worked with Public Works. She worked with the addressing employee that addresses all of
Yeah,
this.
yes. Oh, got it. Yep.
And well, GIS as well as the addresses. And that person also handles like census data. Most of the addresses that the commenter is referring to have nothing to do with the county at all. They're on FEMA maps, they're on the postal service maps, and things have been verified, and this was discussed with her this morning. There's no need to address the board with a topic that's been covered and handled.
So for clarification, you're saying this is not a county map issue. This is a third-party map issue that the county has no control or say so over. Okay, thank you for the clarification. Any other citizen comment from online or in the room that hasn't had a chance to make comment yet? I see one coming forward.
Greg Wagner with Cease. Last week during the commissioners meeting, Jake Anderson attended by Zoom. 3 times he says, "I can't hear you." This happens all the time during our citizens comment through these public meetings here when the commissioners fail to turn their mics on or lean back in their chairs and nobody can hear what's being said. Meeting is supposed to be held according to the Open Public Meetings Act where citizens can hear what our leaders are saying. People on Zoom couldn't hear you last week either. So this is an issue when you don't talk into your microphone. So we need that clarified. We need that fixed. People need to hear what you're saying. You work for us, we'd like to hear what you're saying. And also I'd like to say that the way the chairman handles the executive sessions needs to be corrected. The way you handle it is not quite right. I have information here for you. I hope that you'll read it and start handling them correctly. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you. I'm more than willing to look at your. Yeah. Thank you.
Can we mute 2662? I'm getting feedback.
Yeah, feedback from 2662. Any other citizen comment from inside or outside the room? Please unmute yourself or wave or raise your hand or get our attention. Might do a last call because our responses tend to go longer than the 5 minutes. So we might steal the 2 minutes of citizen comment if nobody has anything. So I will go last call in the room or online for citizen comment to the Board of Commissioners today. And I hear none. So we will open with commissioner responses if they so choose to do so. I guess I will start since I kind of already started. I guess all I can address to you guys, because you do have counsel, we have counsel, it's in council and we shouldn't be discussing the case. Is we're working on the nuisance board of appeals. There's 2 vacant seats because it hasn't been used in 3 years, probably 4 years. I'm hoping to make an appointment today, and then Commissioner District 1 also needs to find an appointment. When we get that handled, I'm sure we will get a hearing scheduled, which will allow you a chance to present your case to somebody that's not us. Other than that, I can't get into the case itself. You'll have to speak to counsel. The counsel is how that normally operates. Kathy, I agree. Parking, we heard a lot of complaints about parking or lack of parking and all the parking fiascos last year. And I think for community days, it was quite evident that those 96, I believe, new parking spots were well used. We still have a little curb work to do at the old annex over there that's going to be done in August. But yeah, I think it's a much better to have all that parking in there. Tracy's address problem, yes, it's been asked and answered multiple times. It's been researched that one might be Klickitat Street, but one might be Klickitat Avenue. One might be White Salmon, one might be Lyle. These are not county issues. They're issues with the website you're looking at your addresses on. Greg, about hearing, yes, my problem seems to be, and I'll admit it, when my seatmates start talking, I always had issues last year because one commissioner would turn to the other one and talk, and then I'm looking over their back. And I felt that kind of rude. So anytime they start talking, I tend to back up in hopes that they can see each other and talk, but then I say something and I'm away from the mic. So it's not done on purpose. It's trying to be done to be polite to the other seatmates. But yes, and I continue to bring it forward because it helps me get close.
You can have headsets.
Well, I can just go closer to the mic too. What else did I have? Oh, and then your comments that being able to hear on Zoom and whatnot are mandatory under the Open Public Meeting Act. And I do have to clarify that one. The only thing that's mandatory under the Open Public Meeting Act is that we actually open this room for the public. It's not that we're on Zoom. It's not that we have microphones. It's just that the room is open for the public. So the fact that we're Zooming is above and beyond the Open Public Meeting Act. And the fact that we have microphones is above and beyond the Open Public Meeting Act. But I hear where you're coming from, and I will read this document. And if I have questions, which I'm sure I will, I'll probably reach out to you and get your take on what you feel the problem is if I can't understand it by reading it, because I am concerned about that. So with that, either of you have comments that you want to say?
I can be short. I just want to thank everybody for coming in today, and thank you for coming back, Thompsons. And respectful dialogue is the only way to make things better, and we'll all work at that. And I appreciate all of you.
And I will say, I hope to bring forward at least one, hopefully two names for next week for the Nuisance Board of Appeals. And other than that, thank you all for your comments, and I will have staff make copies of the MRSC document that you provided, Mr. Wagner, and we will review that.
Yeah, I thought when this board, I'll throw one more up. You're done, sorry.
Okay.
Okay. When this board started and it made a more open public process for appointments to boards, and tried to make sure it could get the public involved to apply and sit on different boards. I actually thought it'd be well received by the general public, and the public would want to get involved in their government and apply to sit on various boards and commissions. Absolutely not the case. I mean, it's absolute crickets when we're calling for people to sit on various boards and commissions. Unless they have some kind of a financial interest in that board, they're just not interested. So, I mean, it's almost pulling teeth. So I sympathize with Commissioner Anderson trying to find somebody that can be a regular citizen that wants to spend their time in a board meeting. Albeit this board doesn't meet very often, so it's one of the most convenient, but plenty of boards and commissions to sit out there if people listening want to apply to sit on one. With that, it is 1:30, so we will end citizen comment. Do you want staff to copy these now, or are you happy to wait until after the meeting, sir?
After meetings, as long as I get up.
I should make sure my phones are muted. With that, I'll thank everybody for coming in. You are heard. I am listening. You may or may not think you're heard, but you are. And I apologize because sometimes I come off a little gruff. I'm kind of, I guess you can refer to me as an old stale cookie, very hard and crunchy on the outside and soft and gooey on the inside. So your first impression may be that crunchy exterior, but I understand where my comments that, again, I will state were not directed at you. I can understand how you took them as directed at you by the way you said you took them. So again, last thing, I want to apologize again for however you took them. Whatever I said that made you take them that way was definitely not my intention. With that, I will end that, and we will move on to 1:30, which is public hearings, public meetings, and bid openings. We have the planning department and Associate Planner Denise Lee. Public meeting for the final approval of BSP 2021-01. CrossFit Mount Adams applicants Matthew and Connie Riley.
I'm sitting way up here. Okay, binding site plan BSP 2021-01 is a proposal to expand parcel 03101344001200 and 03101344001300 into 3 lots in order to create another fitness facility. The proposal is located on the corner of Northwest Loop and North Main in White Salmon within a portion in Klickitat County. The admin review of the short plat has been completed. Signatures have been obtained from the Road Health, Treasurer, and Planning Departments. All conditions attached to preliminary approval have been met. If the board finds it's in the public's interest to approve BSP 2021-01, a motion will need to be made. Applicants Matthew and Connie Riley.
Thank you for that staff report. I'm assuming my seatmates have had time to look over this BSP in our packets. Now is the time for any questions or comments of staff that they may have.
So why is it a binding site plan and not just a short plat?
Because of the zoning. I believe it's commercial zoning. And in that zone, they can, as long as they're meeting the requirements, they can do pretty much what they want in there, but they just have to go through a binding site plan to make sure that they're meeting all like access requirements and setback requirements.
Do you know that? I don't think we've done much in commercial zones, so
I don't think we've done anything in a commercial zone in 2 years.
Right. Mr. Chairman, having before us the BSP 2021-01 for CrossFit Mount Adams, the applicants Matthew and Connie Riley, I would make a motion to approve the binding site plan.
And I'll second.
Okay, see, kicked myself. We have a motion and a second to approve the binding site plan BSP 2021-01. CrossFit Mount Adams applicants Matthew and Connie Riley. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of approval of BSP 2021-01 say aye.
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 Motion passes. Thank you, staff, for the update. I got it said before this line.
I got it.
You did what? Oh. Or we can go back and do them if you have them. That's fine. Right. I just need the date. Okay, perfect. Yep, just go ahead and leave in there. We'll do that right now. Thank you for the pick. With that, for my seatmates, I will advise that staff just advise us that we do have minutes to approve from June 20th, 2022. If we would like to go back and do that before we move on, that would be great. Yes, please.
Mr. Chairman, I would make a motion to approve the minutes from June 20th, 2023.
And I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion, a second to pass the minutes from June 20th, 2023. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye, motion passed. See, fixed, just like that. Next up is 140. It's the add-on, which is the interagency agreement amongst the Washington State Energy Site Facility Evaluation Council in Klickitat County for the purpose of providing reimbursement to Klickitat County for staff review and information related to the Carriger Solar Project. The effective date of this agreement is June 1, 2023 through June 1, 2024. Maximum reimbursement not to exceed $50,000.
Okay.
I would leave it up to my seatmates if they just want to take a vote or if they would like to have discussion before a vote.
Do you have any issues with it since it's not on the consent agenda?
I have a lot of issues. And I, for one, will not be signing.
Would you like to explain why?
I think it pretty much has us doing the state's bidding and facilitating their work. And their bidding, it has in there that I will issue a franchise agreement and other stipulations that by signing the contract I must do that I don't know that I'm ready to do. I also very much disagree with the legal wording in the document that turns over our legal right to file a claim in anywhere other than Thurston County. I think that is the worst possible legal mistake anybody could ever make, is give away their venue of choice. So on multiple reasons, I will not be approving. That's my vote.
This document's been going through a process and I've had some other pressing issues on my plate. Can we ask for more time to reevaluate this for a week so I can look through it and look some things up that I'd like to look up, or do we need to make the decision today?
Good.
Okay.
Technically, we don't have to make a decision until we make a decision.
Okay.
I know they want it a month ago, but you know, that is what it is.
And I know people don't like to hear I was busy, but
You're very busy.
I really, it's a legal document and I know it's had legal review, but I have my questions just from a quick look. I'd like to do an in-depth look for myself at least.
So for the record, this is a reimbursement agreement so that when the county spends time, effort, and money reviewing the application for the Carriger Solar project moving forward, whether it's land use consistency or anything else, that we can bill the state and thus the applicant for that time. We've had multiple iterations of this document. We have looked at it many times. Yeah, it's been in front of the board multiple times.
I didn't know there was multiple reiterations. We got a final document.
We had sent it back out for more information. And if there are questions or concerns that my seatmates have, I'm of course willing to listen to that and take that into consideration. Considering this is just a reimbursement agreement, we have a PA opinion request that states that this puts us in no legal jeopardy with regards to having to do the bidding of FSEC. If the board would like to, or a commissioner would like to change and pull out the venue of jurisdiction, that's something, being that it's an agreement, you can make changes until it's signed, and then you can still make changes. You can get both sides to agree to it. Hopefully we can make the effective date be from June 1st, so that if our staff does spend any time in the next few weeks reviewing FSEC documents, that we can charge for that. The whole goal of this was so that the citizens of the county were not on the hook for having to pay where any of us who apply for any permits or anything, we have to pay. And so being that this is going through a state process, the goal all the way along was to ensure that the citizens of the county are not paying to review something that's going through a state process, which the Stir Board has been directing staff to do, which is review and comment on documents.
Well, that's exactly I want to go through it a little closer. I have concerns about what can be paid back and what will not be paid back, because we've already had some differences with our Public Works Department in conversations about normal things that they would bill for, and he was told, no, we won't be recapping those. So I'd like to see signing on to this. What does that mean? In a situation like that, for the bigger recap of things that we actually deserve and need versus signing off, and then I've signed off on something that I'm not sure what I've done.
Well, and I guess for me is, yes, I want the companies to reimburse the county for any and all costs incurred in doing their permit, but I don't want to do so by signing a document that essentially makes the county FSEC's lackey to do their work for them. And if they disagree, we're not allowed to disagree anymore with how they're doing it. Otherwise, we don't get paid. This document in its wording, I find very much how we will facilitate the consistency hearing. We will facilitate. I don't know that I'm facilitating. Nor am I willing to accept your measly $50,000 buy-off to facilitate you help in a permit. So yeah, and I don't believe our staff is going to have anywhere near that amount of time in this, as it is FSEC doing the work, unless we want our staff to do all of the work, which again, I don't want. So I'm fine with kicking it down the road a week or whatever, however long you need to look at the document, but far too many things and far too much wording in there that not in the original document of the reimbursement agreement. The only thing I really see a problem in there is the venue choice. It's the scope of work in amendment A and B of you will do this and you will do this and you will. I know I don't work for you. I don't have to do your bidding, FSEC. I'm sorry. And that's my opinion. And if it costs the county $30,000 because we want to fight their, like Public Works said, we're not going to get a road haul agreement that they tear up the road and they got to fix it or put an overlay on it. I don't think I'm going to have the same answer as FSEC on most of these issues. And so I'm certainly not going to just facilitate and make their lives easy either. So yeah, I mean, I'm a no on the document, but if the board needs more time to reach consensus, whether that's a yes or no, I'm fine with it.
For the record, that is not a measly $50,000 buy-off. That is called a reimbursement not to exceed amount. And that is so that the FSEC and their ability to bill, because they're going to bill the applicant, that applicant has some surety of an expectation of not to exceed amounts that they can budget. It is in no way buy off. If you would like to change the venue or the governing law, we have a week. Would you like to make those changes, Commissioner Christopher? So that the county can be better protected?
I've already said I'm not changing the document. I'm not signing the document. If the consensus of the board sees fit to do so, they have the choice to do so. I am not signing the document.
I would like to have a week to come back to you, Jake, and discuss anything I see in here, and then we could go from there. If that works.
Look forward to the discussion.
Okay. Can I get a copy? A hard copy? Thank you. When you have.
All righty. Add-on number 1. Add-on, well, it wasn't an add-on. Unfinished business number 2, discussion on appealing the Department of Ecology's decision to approve shoreline substantial development permit and shoreline conditional use permit SH 2022-03 for the Pit Trailhead Project. This is carried forward 1 week. This is an issue which Mrs. Oler recused herself, leaving the two of us. My vote is to appeal. You wanted a week.
So the prosecuting attorney was in here this morning. We exited the open session or the executive session back into open session. That would have been a perfect time for Commissioner Christopher to ask the questions of the prosecuting attorney. So I'm not playing telephone. I don't like to speak for someone. But from my conversation from the PA, that you are not allowed to change your vote after we've already forwarded it. And that from my conversations, we do not have legal grounds for an appeal. But if you would like to appeal it anyways, I would state that the course of action that may be best for you personally would be to appeal that decision personally. Because when I asked the question of the PA, do we get to appeal this, or is it the PA who does the appealing? And from the conversation, it seems that it is the PA's duty to appeal, not ours. And so while you would like to appeal it, I would definitely have a conversation with the PA and fact check all of this, because I don't want to speak for him. But he was in here this morning, and that would have been a great time to ask the questions that you had as well. But from my conversation, while I completely understand your feelings, that you made a decision to approve something based on conditions, from ecologies, from my review of ecology, they removed 2 of those conditions because those were conditions that we could not impose legally. And so that being the case, I don't understand where the grounds for an appeal is, though I completely understand how you feel. And this is why I think it would be great in the future when we are setting conditions, we understand what conditions we can and cannot set either during a substantial shoreline development permit or a CUP. We always need to know the box that we're sitting in.
Okay, I have one question, and I think you said it, but I just wanted clarification. I believe you said that you believe that the prosecutor told you that he has the jurisdiction to appeal or not appeal. And so you were going by what he told you, that he is not going to appeal because he doesn't seek grounds. Is that correct?
That was the essence of my conversation that I could recall,
Perfect.
but I didn't write it all down at the
Perfect.
time.
That's all I wanted to hear. With that, we have a yes and a no. So the item is mute and the item is dead. And it sounds like we will not be appealing. Next up.
If I may, really quick, we pulled it from the the agenda, but the managed service agreement, you responded to that last week when you said you did not like or care for how I characterized those things. I wanted to correct the record. That was an email from me to our IT manager with my questions and thoughts and changes. That was not meant to go to the organization. In the email that I sent, the email said, I hope that you're going to take a look at this, edit this, and then send the questions on to them from your perspective, not my perspective. I was writing down what questions and concerns I had based on that contract that was put before us. And so I just wanted to make sure you were aware of that, Commissioner Christopher, not that I was trying to make decisions and change the contract myself.
Okay, thank you. Next item for business is Dell, and he walked out of the room. If he wants to hear any part of it, he probably should come back. Did we have the mail thing on the consent agenda, or was it on a separate topic that we were supposed to be? Because I'm not seeing it on here. Where's it at? Got it. So you just want a little new business time or something to discuss. Got it.
That's the postage, right?
Hang on.
It's
We're
already-
not there yet. No, we were just getting to me formally making the motion before my seatmates. I guess I'll step down. We have two applicants from District 3 that have applied to the Nuisance Board of Appeals. One of them is a 2-year-old application from Matt Childs. But as Matt Childs is already sitting on the Board of Adjustments, he's already sitting on the Title 12 Road Committee Standard Board, and he's now sitting on our FSEC board. I think 3 are enough for one person at one time. I believe Del Eldred to be a good and honorable man that believes in law and order, believes in criminal justice, believes in the Constitution. I believe that he can be presented a case and be presented with the evidence to know whether there is a violation or not a violation. And so my recommendation before this board is that we appoint Del Eldred to the Nuisance Board of Appeals representing District 3.
And I would second.
Okay, we have a motion in a second. Any discussion?
I believe in Mr. Eldred. I think you show up. And that's saying a lot. And I know you're passionate, but I do believe you're a fair man and you'll weigh both sides of whatever comes before. you.
Exactly.
Mhm.
Well, and that's my only recommendation to you is try not to learn about the case before the case gets before you. So that way you don't have to recuse yourself. And then take all of the evidence presented to you and make a fair and equitable decision if this board so appoints. That is my recommendation.
Okay, so at this time, right now, we have one member of the board.
We have 2. JP Enderby is serving. He used to serve on the board and is
Oh, okay.
continuing to serve. Yeah, the board hasn't been active for 3 years, but he's in District 2. He lives up by Greg. But he has chosen to keep his position and he will be happy to serve. So I needed to find somebody from District 3. Jake needed to find somebody from District 1. So if the board does choose to appoint you today, which we'll have that vote in as soon as we're done with discussion, then like Jake says, he thinks he'll be able to grab somebody from next week and then we can schedule the Thompson hearing before that board. And I mean, the board doesn't get used much. You might be a one and done kind of a scenario. So, but
So basically, when does this board become active actually? Right now or?
When something gets.
when there's an appeal case to be heard before that board. Just like the Thompsons didn't like our decision, decided to appeal. But it hasn't happened in 4 years. So again, in this one, I can't get into it because there's a current. Yep, like please don't. So it's like you will be presented all the evidence. Go into it with an open mind, look at the evidence and
Okay,
do your due diligence and make your recommendation based off your constitutional knowledge. With that, any more discussion before we take a vote?
Just that we've always given deference to the commissioner who brings forward names from their commissioner district. So I plan on showing that deference.
I appreciate that, sir. Normally I do bring forth 2 applications according to our policy, but in this case, we're in a hurry and I had to, and I explained the second, but with that, no further discussion. We have a motion and a second to appoint Del Elder to the Nuisance Board of Appeals. I believe they're 1-year terms, are they not, Miss? Are they 1-year terms? Am I remembering right? Okay. Okay.
Forever.
Uh-oh.
I won't, you
Tell
can
Beth to do your
retire at any
part.
time, sir. With that, we will call the question. All those in favor of appointing Dale Elder to the Nuisance Board of Appeals, say aye.
I,
Aye, motion passes. Congratulations, sir, or I'm sorry, or however you want to take it.
If I may, one,
The only other thing I would, hang on just real quick. The only other thing I would point out is be cautious of Open Public Meeting Act. Don't talk to either of the other two people that are appointed about any of the cases that are brought before you. That way you are fair and unbiased. Try not to talk to the victim, try not to talk to the plaintiff. And that way you go into it completely neutral and nobody has any qualms, but that's just friendly advice.
and I was gonna add some friendly advice to that. So when you're doing that, remember that everything you say or write will likely at some point go in front of a judge. And so you might want to keep most of what you're thinking or doing off the Klickitat voice or anything else that could potentially be used in a court of law later on. Just because we have a little bit of experience with the Open Public Meetings Act these days.
Actually, I'm gonna go out of order. Do you have any questions for us on this appointment thing? If you do, you can ask them later off the record call me, email me, we'll chat, whatever. Okay. If you do, you know where we are. Thank you all for that one. Moving on, we have the consent agenda.
Was there any issues from my seatmates?
I didn't have any.
no,
Okay, Mr. Chairman, I would make a motion to approve the consent agenda with all 8 items.
and I would second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda with 8 items. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion passes. Oh, sorry, that's what I kind of did by his appointment. We have it on here, discussion on nuisance board of appeals. And that's where I brought up the application process, but if you have any other discussion for the nuisance board of appeals, we can backtrack and you can have whatever other discussion you have for that word.
Well, that's what I was wondering, if we had anything planned by Jordan or something for it says the nuisance appeal process, and I know we're gonna have a conversation on Thursday about the flow chart.
I would imagine, and this is just me speaking, I guess I would think we're gonna need to have a legal opinion from a prosecutor as to when someone can or cannot file for an appeal. We're gonna have to go over the flow chart and how we like that flow chart, and then somewhere in that flow chart is gonna have to be, and this is your time where you get to file an appeal. So we are gonna have a couple questions for legal before we get through that process.
Did we invite legal to the conversation on Thursday?
You can if you want.
I mean, you've brought up a very good point, whether or not somebody can put in, someone can put in a nuisance appeal or someone can put in a nuisance or code complaint, and they can do so anonymously. And usually the person that appeals it is the person that the complaint is after, not the person who's complaining.
And this is not pertaining to any particular case. But under my understanding, what we have is under Klickitat County Building Code 15.04.020B. It states further violations of this title is declared unlawful and a public nuisance. And because then it's declared a public nuisance, that allows it to go to the Nuisance Board of Appeals. The question to me is the violation. Is there an honest to true violation? Can somebody point out in the code where your flower pot has to have a permit, or your tree house? You don't have a permit for your tree house. So yes, there's a violation in the code. Somebody needs to be able to point out the violation to me before it ever gets to become a public nuisance, and then be justified to go to the Nuisance Board of Appeals. It has nothing to do with anybody other than I'm not going to try somebody for murder unless somebody says, yeah, it's murder and they had the gun. Not just, I can't get my way here, so it's murder. Let's send them to trial. And to me, I have a question for legal as to what is the violation? What code, what act, what RCW, what is the violation? Because if there's a violation, me personally, I don't need to go to a board of appeals. I'll send Georgia after them and write them a ticket. But I can't send my Nazi thug out to write somebody a ticket if they can't find a violation. And so I'm trying to abide by the Constitution and protect people's constitutional rights for undue prosecution. If I don't see a violation. So there's a legal question there. And then when is that inserted into our flow chart is the second question.
So are we going to invite Rebecca or Prosecutor Cannell to Thursday's workshop
We can,
to work on this flow chart?
we can.
Do we want to direct staff to do so?
I think before you get too carried away, you need to sit down, you need to review your code.
Which I would definitely like Rebecca or Q there if we're going to sit down and redo the code and have conversations.
That's not what's on Thursday, that is
George.
flow chart. The board asked for a flow chart for their code.
That would then match up to our current code.
Yes.
Correct. And if we decided to update the code later, we might have to make some tweaks to the flow chart because there are some things in there like writing, $100 violation tickets, whatever, that I wouldn't mind seeing in the flow chart that may not be into the code. So I would suggest we just come up with a flow chart so it would help our employees do their job and would help the citizens know where we're at, what's next. And then ask the couple legal questions we have. And then as we get time, which I'm more than welcome to, I'll have a workshop on a Wednesday or a Monday or whatever. The board just has to be able to find the time to do it. Where we sit down for 4 hours and just hammer it out. I'm all fine with more workshops and getting more work done, but see, I was turning my back to you trying to be,
No, I'm
now I
okay.
feel rude.
No, you're okay. You're just fine.
So yes, I would say yes. Let's direct staff to give them an open invite if they want to attend.
But we're only taking a small bite this time. We're getting that.
Ideally,
And
because
then we can move on from there once we get this one piece done.
I think it's going to be a more detailed conversation that's very obviously more time consuming.
Mhm.
Especially if we get into actual, looking at the final print of the code itself. We need to just clarify the code and make sure everybody understands the code and what comes next and what constitutes violation and when does it get turned from a violation into a nuisance where they can appeal to the Board of Appeals. And that technically would be nice to get worded out in that flow chart. Now I would like, I'm going to send over a legal opinion request on this. And then I suggest we figure out what we're going to do with the flow chart, and then we can send the flow chart over and say, okay, where does the appeal process float into the flow chart, and let them make that little box on the flow chart. And then we'll look at the flow chart again. That's my recommendation.
Thank you for the great conversation.
Yep. All right, now we move off. We did consent agenda. We're off to pay estimate number 1.
So you motion to approve the warrants? Is that what you're looking for?
You can do
Yes.
that too. Go ahead and do that.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve the accounts payable warrants in the amount of $178,793.57 and the payroll benefit warrants in the amount of $825,491.38, date ending July 10th, 2023.
I will second the motion.
Okay, we have motion and a second to pay the bills. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right.
All right, motion passes.
Mr. Chairman, I would make a motion to pay estimate number one and final to DKB Inc. in the amount of $13,712.06, which includes 7.5% sales tax for the KC Services Building HVAC insulation project C11623.
And I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion second to pay estimate number one and final to DKB. Any further discussion on that one? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye,
Aye.
motion passes. Next up is your postage machine lease renewal. We'll have a brief staff update.
So this is in regards to the postage machine that is at the courthouse. And currently, we are in a 63-month contract that is coming to expire in approximately between March and April of 2024. We pay $450 a month for that lease. There is a new lease proposal for $377.51 a month for 60 months. It's a savings of $72.49. And I wanted to see if I could get permission to proceed and
So if we're willing to end our lease a year early and sign up for a new lease on a, whatever that is, a 5-year term, we will end up saving $75 a month from what we're currently paying. Does it come with new equipment or the same equipment?
comes with new equipment, updated equipment.
So maybe there's less glitches when people actually do the mail. Do my seatmates have any questions of staff on this or recommendations or?
Just one question. Is this what Heather Joby is here for?
No.
Oh, okay.
Mhm.
I was gonna get to her next. I don't have any concerns. It saves money, it gives us better machinery. I don't mind extending the lease because we're gonna be under some kind of lease with some kind of postal machine for the rest of our lives or until we stop sending mail. So I don't have any issues, so you have my consensus.
The one we're under now, we're at 63 months.
Mhm.
So we're outside of the lease agreement, so we're not going to be breaking the lease and having to pay.
No, by
correct?
renewing, it
Got it.
completely changes, yeah.
We're inside the lease that we sell a year.
Yeah. And
But it's with the
maintenance,
same-
installation and
And
training.
they're willing
They're
to.
allowing us to extend the lease essentially. starting place.
Looks
Yep.
good.
No, everywhere we can save money in phones or mail machines, and I very much appreciate you guys looking into ways to save us money.
And
Would you like a motion? Would you like,
Oh, I guess I can talking about saving money. MRSC has an open public meetings training with the new laws that came out that I wanted to attend. It's $40, but I read on there that our new insurance company pays for one person from our county to go. So I reached out to our risks manager and he is unaware of anybody from our county attending it. So he is currently reaching out to our insurance carrier to give me the code that would allow me to go without having to pay $40. I know it's $40, but
no, it's a good.
making staff jump through hoops to
I
pay
think if
$40.
you want, you can get as much Open Public Meetings Act training as you can get. You should do so.
I think we should all. With that, we'll go out of order and ask our auditor if she had something for us and
She
she's here.
is my invite this
Oh,
afternoon
your invite.
for our agenda item on the, I got lost here, Water Conservancy Board.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Do you want to,
So she was going to sit through the meeting with us.
well, we have a Water Conservancy Board member, Craig Stevens, on the agenda. Do you want to get to your add-on before that, or do you want to get to your add-on after that?
No, she's just here in case we have questions.
Got it.
Okay.
With that, I would say I'm assuming we have Mr. Craig Stevens. Is that you, sir? If you're willing to start early and you don't need anybody else or whatever, we will take you, and because otherwise I'll move on and I don't want to make you wait, so.
Craig Stevens, I'm Chair of the Water Conservancy Board. And I just wanted to come in and find out what your plans are for the Water Conservancy Board going forward after your action last week.
I don't know. We haven't discussed it.
Well, you made a radical decision last week, in my opinion, and you had no plans. It was just a spur of the moment thing, or
Well, I will say that it was not a radical decision. I will say that there is reasons behind it, but I am not going to get into reasons of that would get into publicly bad mouthing or shaming or any of that in an ex-county employee. So there are reasons, but I'm not going to air grievances publicly. Yes, there are changes that are currently being made that will probably be made, and it sounds like we'll have some recommendations moving forward. But no, not a quick irrational decision. It has actually been talked about off and on, although be it very few words for probably 3 months.
so it's been discussed somewhere. Can I get a date and whatever meeting that was, so I can watch the recording and see what was discussed?
I can't tell you which date it was. You'd have to go back and look at the recordings to pick it out.
For the last 3 months.
Since the retirement was given over to us, that would be the start date and to look for.
So what are we, I don't know if you realize what the Water Conservancy Board does or.
I'm aware.
Okay. Well, I've never seen, except for Jake, I've never seen anyone at a meeting. So I'm not sure you really know what we do at the meetings.
Okay, sir, this is a time for you to either give the board an update, not to give a Spanish Inquisition of the board.
Well, I need to know what you're doing to fill the position that that person was in.
I've already made a recommendation to replace the Economic Development Director, which would then, in my opinion, oversee that board. But this board chose not to go that route yet. So when this board finally chooses to go that route, I would assume we would have an Economic Development Director who would then oversee that board. But until we do, we need to have somebody that can temporarily oversee that board.
Right.
And we'll have discussions.
Well, life goes on. I spent the weekend putting together the meeting for tonight that we're having at 7 o'clock. You guys are invited. A lot of time on the phone, 40 some phone calls. That's a job that the person that was dismissed did and did very well. There's a lot of experience there, 20 some years of experience in the Water Conservancy Board. And I'm just concerned the method used to dismiss them. So.
I have a question. On your board, learning about the board, I know the overall of the board, but learning about the current board, on our website, it has the board members, but it doesn't have your positions on the board. So you're a chairperson.
I'm chair this year, and the person dismissed was the secretary, treasurer, coordinator, I guess you'd even add on to the end of that.
You did all your administrative work.
Oh yeah, all the minutes, every one of these changes. In fact, we got one from Benton County coming in tonight, change. They'll require a public notice depending on where. I haven't seen it yet, but I mean, it could be a foot-long legal description that has to be in the paper. And if one comma or a dash is out of place, somebody will protest it, and then it all has to be redone again. Another $500 or $1,000 for advertising fees. So I mean, it's a really involved position. You take somebody, I couldn't do that. I mean, I'd look at it, if it looked pretty good, it's pretty good. That's the way I am, but it takes a guy that or a person that can, pay attention to really detail. And we don't have any of the contact information, all that was, luckily I had some contact information. But the board is an important board. And I think by doing what you did, and I'm sorry you think I'm getting in your face, but I mean, in fact, I think Jake came up with the idea to snag that creek coming off Mount Adams to feed white salmon so they could have water here. What was that, 10 years ago or so? I mean, all these farms come into us and they were spreading their water so they can get more crops, more income for the county.
I don't disagree that the board is a very important board and it needs to continue being a very important board going forward. The differences over who is the administrative secretary on behalf of the county for this board. And again, I can't get into personnel decisions of past public employees. I know things that you don't know. You just have to trust that. I hope that maybe the board can make a recommendation of a different name that the commissioners can look into. Nothing stops a private individual from working with you on a private way, as long as they're not appointed by the board. So there's nothing to stop further communication other than actively working for the county or being an appointment of the county. And all I can say is I have reasons, but trying to keep us out of the next lawsuit,
Right.
I'm going to keep the reasons.
Sure. I mean, you know the law a lot better than I do. So would it be possible for the board to hire that person back as a contract employee while we do this change instead of just?
I made my decision to remove that person from the board for a reason, and I would not in good faith put them back.
May I, Chair? Since I have a little bit of experience on the Water Conservancy Board, since I served on it for a few years. Two very important things. Number one, the Water Conservancy Board is its own individual organization. And the Board of County Commissioner gives a grant to the Water Conservancy Board and appoints those members. Dave McClure was an alternate member. He was also staff, much like Jeff King is staff for the SAR teams. The decision on to hire him or not is up to the Water Conservancy Board.
But
it is not up to the Board of County
The
Commissioners.
decision on whether to appoint or not appoint the commissioners to sit on that board
That
is up to this.
That is up to the board. But I would also like to mention that you said to serve in a contract capacity. And so what you're in essence saying is the board just canceled the contract with the person who's been doing that job for a very long time. I'd also like the board to know that it is no small task to be and sit and make a decision on the Water Conservancy Board. It is a minimum of 40 hours of education just to be able to make a decision, and that's the beginning. On top of that, there's continuing education. They only host those meetings once a year for those educations. It's a week-long thing. You can't just have someone like an economic development director just sit in to manage that. This is about as highly specialized and technical as we have in the county of all things. Water rights are ridiculously complex. And so I asked the question last week whether or not that we were removing this person from all and everything. And it sounds like we did cancel that contract. I think what Mr. Stevens is asking right now is not an inquisition, but he's asking, what are we supposed to do if we don't have staff with the knowledge and experience to manage this? And he's asking for direction since they have a meeting tonight. I don't know anyone in the county that can do this. There's only a few organizations in the state that have the experience with water rights, people like Aspect Consulting. You don't want to know what they charge per hour. I'd also like to set the record straight that whenever Mr. McClure would serve on the board and vote decision-making capacity, he would not charge for his time. I am frankly beyond disappointed with this board in the fact that we can sit here and say we are removing someone from a position, and I'm not going to tell you why, because I don't want it to look bad in the public. By saying that, you're in essence impugning someone's reputation in public. And you're doing that to somebody who has spent an inordinate amount of time volunteering in this community, working for this county, and you're going after their reputation by saying things like that. If you can't say the reasons and rationale, try not to say anything. I've seen it happen before, and honestly, I'm disgusted right now.
If I can jump
It
in.
really hurts my feelings. And I can see that it's affected the members of the Water Conservancy Board. I've heard people that have been talking about quitting because of this and the way that this was done.
So if I can jump in, I'd like to back this up just a little bit. I know Mr. McClure was in his retirement phase, and I had personal conversations about wanting more time with his grandchildren and some things. And I know he had a vacation planned. And I know right now he is back east and he's getting that time that he was looking forward to. So in the midst of all these changes, the Water Conservancy Board being separate from the County Commissioners in the design was moving forward, and you had a regular scheduled meeting for tonight. How were you guys going to handle this meeting tonight?
We weren't going to have it. I pushed this meeting because I can't guarantee we'll have quorum after tonight. I have Scott Andrews' resignation letter he sent to me, which I haven't accepted. He's with Andrews Farms. I don't know if you know who he is. And
okay, so that answers that question on
yeah,
administration
I
for
think
tonight for
we
me.
were kind of planning on skipping this month because Dave was gone.
Yeah,
And picking up next month.
Okay.
But I'm just afraid that after tonight and whatever discussion happens tonight, that we may not have a voting quorum available from now on until.
well, and you and I did have a conversation a few days ago, and I tried to explain that it wasn't any intent to purge the board or any other thing that was in that conversation. We are in a reorganization phase, and right now with the Water Conservancy Board, just to learn about the board, Mr. McClure had everything in his head. Yeah, everything, a very, very big, a lot of everything. And because of the design of the Water Conservancy Board and a little bit of a disconnect from the county, it's even harder to find the information, to find the accounting, to find the bookwork, to find how did this board function, what was it doing, and what is its look for the future? What's our best way to serve the people and serve that board? How do we move forward? And then whatever differences we discuss. To me, process is the most important thing first. Make sure it keeps functioning. And that's why I asked the auditor to sit in, because there's some questions in my mind, since I couldn't just open a drawer and go through things and say, oh, well, this is what we do. I understand that money transfers. So that's the first place I went, was to our auditor to say, what does this look like? How is it functioning? So she's getting up to speed too, and maybe has questions.
Right. I think I've been with the board more or less 15 years. Still learning every day, besides the fact that ecology changed the rules constantly.
Yeah.
And it just takes so much time to learn. And this isn't a board like most boards where you come in once a month, you sit down, you take roll call, you vote on a couple of items, tell some jokes and go home for a month. This is, you're hands-on, you got to go out in the field. You got to inspect this stuff. We did Condit Dam when that was removed, we had point of withdrawal changes that were clear down a cliff that had to be, and of course, that all has to be coordinated with contractors and all this stuff around that has to be figured out, set up, so you never have a quorum on site. So you can only have 2 commissioners at one time. So all that has to be scheduled in with contractors and farmers and whoever you're dealing with. It's not just a slam dunk thing, take some minutes, go home. So I really, I know you guys think you thought about this, but I don't think you had enough information to make a rational decision. My opinion.
And you're entitled to your opinion. I can't unfortunately go into the rationale of my opinion. But all I can say is that, yes, I agree, it's an important board. It's one of the most important boards. But from this point, we have to see how we move forward. And I don't see moving forward as going back. So
If in the interim, if we don't have a voting quorum, then anybody with a water right change goes to Yakima and slaps it down behind 6,000 other applications up there.
well,
That's-
you have an opening on that board already. Why are we not working to fill that
It's hard to
opening
get
that's been
people,
there?
it's hard to get
I
people.
think I was
to
just
commit.
talking about that for our other boards. too,
Yeah,
which are
yeah, it's
less
hard to
time
get people
consuming.
to commit, especially for this one with the education you got to take before you can ever do
I
any
would think
voting.
the people with a financial interest, the water right holders, would be far more interested in
Well, there's
keeping their
rules,
rights.
there's rules. You can't have all water right holders.
Some have to be and some not. yeah.
Right, like me, I don't have a water right. So you gotta have somebody without a water right, at least one, I don't remember.
Well, you have one Andrews with a water right and one Andrews without. Are they related or different families? Do you know?
I think they're uncle and
They're different
nephew, maybe,
families, Different families.
yeah,
No relationship at all?
They're, I mean, it's all of the same tree, but.
Right.
Yeah.
That's all I'm asking.
I don't know, I
Yeah.
thought they were like nephew and uncle, I don't know what their exact.
So you have
relationship-
3 water right holders and 2 non-water right holders. Who is the guy that you said is retiring? Is he a holder or non-holder?
He's a holder.
At your meeting this evening, is there anything really crucial that you have to get done? It was set back because Dave was going to be gone. And even though this decision came forward and you decided to push the meeting out of fear that you might not have a quorum, if you move through the meeting tonight and not have to make crucial decisions with the idea Mr. McClure will be back and we'll keep moving forward where we're going to make decisions.
We're set up for tonight,
Yeah,
so.
yeah, and I'll attend tonight. I'll come in and
Okay.
answer questions if you need.
It's,
So you're set up to move forward tonight and get the things on your agenda, which are posted on the door out there,
right,
done and handled tonight with no Mr.
Right.
McClure around.
yeah, it looks like Dr. Olson from the Benton County Board is gonna bring an application tonight. That's what we wanted to get
Okay.
taken care of because you know,
And then
All
you
of a
said
sudden we're-
technically you meet once a year. So
No.
how often do you meet? I mean, how crammed for time are we in figuring out who's your? I guess if you need an outside secretary and it's not one of your existing people. And I think that's what you're asking for is an outside secretary to control
yeah, I don't see anyone that currently on the board that has the time or the expertise to do what Dave did.
And they don't meet once a year, sir.
well, that's why I was asking, you said, but as.
It's
how often?
monthly.
You do meet monthly?
Yeah, well, we meet ever since, we used to, ever since the COVID thing, you know, we kind of got away. We had, I forget how many, 12 or 15 applications in January of 2020 because ecology was changing the application form.
Nowadays, do you meet every other month?
Well,
every
we
3
meet
months?
when necessary. We've got,
Right, but how long is that average?
Well, it all
Give me a-
depends on when an application comes
I'm
in.
just trying to get an idea. I'm not holding.
yeah,
anybody to
we,
anything.
I'm trying to remember it says on the agenda
what the minutes were, I think May or June.
And it's not a
Was our
simple
last meeting.
secretary position.
It was May.
This is one of the, probably the most highly specialized positions that you can imagine. It's, you know, what we contract out to Aspect for probably a junior executive at $270 an hour is the expertise that's required to do that job.
I wouldn't want it at any price. Cause all you're gonna do is end up making a mistake. Like me. It's, anyway, I just, you know, I drove up here just to talk to you guys and let you know that, you know, these decisions are really important. And I mean, if someone would have called me, I could have gave some input before this decision and would have been more than happy to come up and meet and do whatever. But, you know, everybody on the board that has found out about this is very unhappy.
I can understand that, but again, they don't know what I know. So, and I can't tell them what I know. So
Yes.
I have to make decisions that are on the best interest of the
Right.
county and the county's budget. And it
And
sometimes change is difficult, but yes.
And I can't tell you because I don't know.
I would think that all the board members should know what's going on. I'm trying to, I have no vested interest in the Water Conservancy Board as far as personal water rights or any of that stuff. I do it as a public service. I did it for 15 years with Dalsport Water as a public service thing. So, you know, when doing a public service becomes more of a headache than a benefit, maybe it's time for everybody to back out.
I have those same thoughts sometimes.
Yeah, I'm sure you do. I'll match my paycheck from the Conservancy Board against yours.
They're probably not that big a difference.
Not that much. But anyway,
Yes, thank you, sir.
thanks for your
And
time. We'll see you at the meeting. tonight.
Question, before he walks away. As I understand it, I've been told, you can sit down, this is gonna tie it all together. I've been told that the office is now locked, Mr. McClure's old office. And so I guess the question would be, is the Water Conservancy Board is in essence its own organization. It does the finances a little differently. They actually accept cash. They have a checking account. In order, if Mr. Olson is bringing an application tonight, he has to be bringing money to go with that, which means they need access to that checking or that deposit slip and account that I would expect is in the office somewhere. Who is going to be getting this? Who's going to be setting this up? What is the plan of the board now that we're making these radical changes?
I'm gonna keep my gavel behind its scenes, but ask my seatmate to quit being dramatic with radical changes and
I think I've got the deposit covered. If I can find the bank, they keep changing the names over here, so.
if there is something that needs to come out of that office.
Well, it has to be deposited. That check has to be deposited by the auditor's rules within 24 hours.
Right. So if there's something you need out of that office, you need to let us know. And we will make it available, you know, checkbook or whatever you need in there.
I'm gonna assume I can walk into the bank because I'm signatory on the account.
Yeah, without a
And-
deposit slip.
Right,
As long as you're not cashing the check, they usually they do.
right. And like I say, I gotta find the bank. I'm not sure.
But it also needs to be entered into the check register
Oh, absolutely.
and everything else. And so.
But I don't have that.
Well, that's what I'm saying. We need to make sure you have access to those documents and that information. There's a process and we get audited on that every year.
Every year.
And it's a long process, so I want to ensure that that process is followed.
Have you come across that check register by chance?
No. And the filing cabinet that is was 3 drawers high is not in that room. It's not in the storage room in the hallway.
There's a missing filing
There
cabinet.
is no accounting on
I think that's the
the
Conservancy
secretary's prism or
Board's
anywhere else.
cabinet and he took it home. I think.
Interesting. So maybe he has the checkbook.
Yeah, that probably. I don't know.
Yeah, well, that would be a good question for the person that owned the checkbook, is where the checkbook is.
Yeah.
And then if it's in our control, let us know.
Right.
So
I don't
That
know.
might answer your question.
First I've heard about any of this. I'm still trying to understand why the door's locked and what's going on. I mean, there's a lot of statements around here. I have information that you don't have, or
I think I can simply say it without causing any trouble.
I was gonna say, I'd be careful though.
I mean, if there's an investigation or something, I mean, this is usually something of an investigative nature or something when you start speaking like this.
Well, I think we said 2 or 3 times in the discussions with Mr. McClure about how crucial it was to preserve paperwork because he was so intelligent, had so many things that he worked on in his head and had stacks and stacks of paperwork. And we wanted a list of projects and things before he left, so that we could continue on. So I think preservation of documents is a very important issue.
Are you making the accusation that?
I'm
there's
not
no-
making any accusations.
I'm trying to figure out what's going on here.
Use your
And we
words
need to-
accordingly and
We
give
need to
respect
talk
to your
about
fellow
this in
citizens.
executive session.
That's what I'm asking. Is there an investigation? Is this something
No,
we can do in executive
that's
session? 'Cause
not
This is the first I'm
Anything we're
hearing
saying,
about.
so stop
And
using the words.
That's my point, is let's be a little more respectful of your seatmates
Yeah.
without throwing around names and accusations that are uncalled for and
Because
blasphemy.
as much as
And
you.
in all
accuse me,
reality-
Christopher, you're starting rumors and innuendos by your statements right now, Jake.
Which is why every time you want to enter in debate now, just so you know, why I won't debate back. I'm not going to debate anymore. I'm just going to state my point and then you can throw whatever grenades you want this direction. I'm not going to do that anymore. So just so you know, when you only get one side of a debate, that's why. For your case about talking about this in executive session, I do not believe, I think you're going to have to ask for a legal opinion on that if you had to have it.
Okay.
Because I do not believe unless there is pending or threatened litigation, this is not going to qualify, because even still, we can't go in for disciplinary actions of a public employee because they're not a public employee. So I don't know where this qualifies. as
Okay.
executive.
Yeah, because I don't know what qualifies for.
I guess maybe it feels like I'm being a little accusatory because it seems like you two understand what the heck's going on here and we've never had any conversation and I'm completely
I
lost
felt
as
like
to what's
that for
going
2
on.
years.
I think,
felt like
I
that for
think
2
being a
years.
new commissioner, I have a little lack of process on how you handle certain situations and I'm being very careful. I don't want to cross a line somewhere where I don't belong. So I'm being very careful.
That's me. I'm not going to prison for somebody else. So,
Thank you, guys.
thank you. See, that went off the rails quite quickly, didn't it?
That's okay.
I'll try to send a couple messages and find out where that checkbook is if I can.
Oh, okay.
Because you need that and all the rest of the stuff for tonight's meeting. Were you able to build the budget document? Or anything, how we always have the reimbursements and all that goes through?
Everybody's coming from just on their own goodwill tonight.
All right. Well,
We'll search it out later. I'm the poorest one of the groups. Everybody else is pretty well off. They can afford some gas. Thank you.
Heather, do you happen to have any questions or you just auditing?
Not specifically.
Okay.
My office is happy to help with forensic audit. Clarify some things. Explain some things.
Yeah,
Available to help.
and maybe that's something we could talk about because I have a lack of process and we are invested because we did do they're calling it a grant, but there is an investment at the county level. Without the documents, I don't know on file if we have a resolution for that. I don't know if we have a contract on file anywhere. For payment to the Water Conservancy Board for reimbursement for Mr. McClure for his time being administrator, treasurer,
It's my
secretary.
understanding that the contract expired, they did not have. It's been volunteering this time in the last
Okay.
few years.
But is there a paper trail anywhere to see those original contracts so we can move forward?
They're only
Yes.
at the auditor's office.
Okay,
Yes, there was a contract agreement. I remember seeing that said contract agreement.
Right, but I would question again that if that contract expired because he was acting in a volunteer status and wasn't billing the county, and then we were gonna go back now and retroactively pay him for something he never asked for, I think we should get legal counsel on gift of
I'm
public
not
funds big
asking
time.
any of that. I'm asking process questions. Where did we come from and where are we going?
Yeah, I asked for the contract earlier and was told it was expired, so I'm gonna have to do some digging and see if I can even find the old one. To get an idea on what was even in the contract, what is the scope of? Yeah, or something. Okay. Yeah, I'm just kind of looking to see what the scope of work in the contract was. I'm sure it's just not, take minutes. It's just what is all in there. But this comes down to. Yeah, I don't want to go there either. And no, I don't think you're getting it legally under executive. It would have to be open in public if you wanted to discuss,
Okay.
which I would advise against it at
And I
this point in
appreciate
time,
you
but
coming over, Heather, and I think I'm on a learning quest still. And I'll probably reach out and see if you can clarify more things for me.
It,
I
Heather,
appreciate it.
just to be clear, nothing with the Water Conservancy Board went through the auditor's office, correct? Because they did it all on their own. It was cash accounting. That's how it all. And they
Where
were
did
not
they-
eligible, right? To do so?
Don't know necessarily the eligibility. I don't have taxing authorities who are not truly governmental. I had a discussion with the former treasurer, of the Water Conservancy Board, who did tell me that he had asked the previous auditor if they would run the books through the auditor's office and handle the payables. That would be a discussion.
I'm sorry, I'm gonna have to make you come forward to a microphone. Greg, you're right on. We can't hear you online. You reminded me of that and I just remembered it.
I had a discussion with a former treasurer from the Water Conservancy Board who said he had previously asked an auditor to run their payables through our office and was told no. I don't know the reasoning behind the no. In order to run payables through our office, the treasurer would also have to act as the treasurer. So that may be some of it. It's probably a discussion for the finance committee as to whether or not that's something that the county wants to take on. It would require a little more research and probably a legal opinion as to whether or not they're standing to do that.
Okay, I did. Thank you.
Yeah, I think we need an education on the process of this board, and it kind of would have been nice to have that education over the last 2.5 years, but we're gonna be learning as we go, I guess.
It also strikes me that there may be some confusion between county designation and conservancy designations.
Elaborate.
The conservancy can hire employees.
Correct,
The county appoints the conservancy board.
correct. We had an appointment on the Conservancy Board. We removed that appointment. If the Conservancy Board wants to hire someone, they can do so.
Yes.
That's why I was asking for clarification before, because you said any contracts as well. And so it sounded like you were canceling the
If that any
contract.
contract the county has. I can't cancel the contract with the Conservancy unless it's signed off by the county. Which I haven't seen the contract. And I didn't say contracts when I made my motion. It was removal, and I can read the exact wording for you. I know people like to put words in my mouth, but actually I can't because I deleted it from my draft. It was removal from all boards that the county commissioners have jurisdiction over, was the way the motion was read. Didn't have anything to do with contracts. With that, any further questions for our fine elected official in front of us here?
Thank you for
No,
taking the time.
Thank you for attending.
You're welcome.
All righty. So we are back on to FSEC public hearing. It was my opinion, and I will just go forth and make a motion right now that we move forward with holding the public hearing on the emergency land use decision that this county has already made to deem solar inadequate inside the moratorium boundaries. We already made all that. We now just have to hold the public hearing. That public hearing, yes, has to be done within 6 months. I'm making a really long motion. Boy, sorry. It's my motion to have that public hearing on August 1st, both at the 1:30 p.m. time and then again in the evening. Knowing that we also have the Title 12 standard boards at the same time, so we might want to give a little extra room. And that is my motion.
And I will second that motion.
Okay.
The motion.
That you want to second that most eloquently worded motion.
I'm not going to try to repeat.
Yeah, I wouldn't try to repeat it either. Okay, we have a motion and a second to move the emergency zoning restriction hearing to August 1st. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of moving the public hearing from August 8th to August 1st, say aye. Aye.
I
All those opposed? Nay.
Say nay, since our
Okay,
director won't be there.
motion passes on a 2-to-1 vote. What else we got? Board pending, good of the order. Thompson Road. IT was on day, but got pulled. I have nothing further.
have nothing.
I do want to write that one legal request questioning the legal advice given already, essentially, which is weird, but on the
Sorry, I missed that. What?
so the Thompson Road appeal, the quote under Klickitat County Building Code, further violation of this title is deemed a nuisance, end quote. That was a legal that was a quote from our legal department. In response to George Sandejas, our code compliance officer, telling him to schedule a hearing. I have a question on that and what is the violation? So I'm gonna send because I think
In a public record.
I think George has asked multiple times, is there any violation here? And his answer has always been no, so.
So what's the appeal for? If there's no
That's kind of where I'm coming from the whole time. Not that I want to shortcut the experience at all, but somebody needs to point out the violation, then I'm fine. So anyway, I'll send a legal on that. Other than that, I might send one more. Because the way I take it is under RCW 36.27.020. Friend 1, the Board of County Commissioners are the decision makers in litigation involving the county. That's the way I've always understood it. Is that not the way you've always understood it?
Send a PR.
So I guess my question is, I believe it should be the Board of County Commissioners who are the decision makers in litigation, beings it's whether they want to appeal something, whether they want to post a stay, whether they want to negotiate a settlement on other issues we currently have. I guess I'd say my first step is getting a legal opinion to that question, but that question might actually be passed farther up the ladder for a legal opinion.
What do you mean further up the ladder?
Chain of command. So those are the two legal opinions I plan on doing.
Where's further up the ladder than the chain of command? PA opinion.
Dave, we can't hear you.
I apologize.
Need to get you a big stick.
We just need to hold the things like over here because I want to still be able to.
Well, that's the thing. So I stick up here and he can't. So we're not doing it to hurt you. We're doing it to try to be respectful to each other. And in trying to be respectful to each other, we're not being respectful to you. So I get where you're coming from. Just kind of try to work with this a little bit.
And as it's been told, the meetings are a meeting between the board, and having the conversation here is important. Now I lost my train of thought.
Green.
Where is up the chain of command? What do you mean up the chain of command? If we're sending a PA opinion request, how do you go above that?
Again, sir, I'm not entering. I'm sorry. Again, sir, I'm not entering in debate.
Well, it's not debate. It's a simple question. If you're making a statement, I'm trying to understand what so we can communicate so I can understand where you're going with this. I mean, if you don't want to debate, that's kind of what we do. It's our jobs.
I disagree. I think our job is to give our opinion, share our opinion with the general public, and not necessarily enter into debate when that debate turns personal and derogatory and insightful and accusatory. To defend our position, we're going to attack somebody else's position. I don't agree with that being a proper, respectful debate. And so I will no longer be partaking in them.
Can you explain how asking the question, what up further the chain of command creates the question of accusatory, defamatory, or any of those other things? I'm just trying to understand where you're going with this so that hopefully I can agree with you in the direction that you're seeking to go.
And in my opinion, I think you should end your conversation because Jake's looking for answers and you're formulating your own personal views as a commissioner right now. And this is going to be a debate that never ends or doesn't end well. So we should just stop here. Mr. Christopher has his right to his elected position to move forward with things and search those out and look for those as well as you do at times. And so pressing this point right now is kind of fruitless. I think we should just leave it as is for today. Unless he's coming to ask us for something. I have nothing to press him on with his quest for myself.
So I guess with that and our past precedents, if you would like to send a PA opinion request, I will always be supportive of that, is what I would say. It feels like there's a lot of things that I don't know about what's kind of going on, or like when you get your PA opinion request back, do we see it without having a conversation about it?
That's a very good point. And I think this board, and I don't know if it wants to take the time to do so today. I would like to see this board make an official policy. I don't know how we have to do such a thing, whether we need to write it on paper or not, that going forward, a member of this board types up the opinion request, gives it to staff to put on the document the prosecutor chooses us to put it on. So it isn't the staff writing out the opinion request. It's this board. And then when any opinion request is given to the prosecutor, it can be up to this board whether that question is shared with everybody. Because technically it's this board getting legal advice, not individual commissioners. So I would say every question asked should be shared with the other commissioners. And then when legal responds in policy, that all responses have to be in writing. Just like when asked by RCW 3627020, to present that document in writing when asked, that we make sure that all things are in writing, so there's no hearsay coming through staff on what legal said. We can all read it to ourselves, and it's all distributed to all three commissioners. So all three commissioners are in the loop. I feel kind of bad, to be honest, and kind of not so, that you feel like you're out of the loop, because I was out of the loop for 2 years. And I feel like pretty much nobody cared because I was out of the loop. And part of that out of the loop might have something to do with why we find ourselves in the positions we find ourselves in today.
And so coming in, I agree. That for me works really well, because coming in, I wanted strategic planning because I saw the gaps. And it's like, wow, I've never worked this way, where you have to work together as a board, but you're not. And so how do we define all of this? Where is everyone's lane, but yet how do we merge as a board? And how do we share that information is really hard to do. But everybody deserves their right to ask our prosecutor for his assistance. And as that comes back, if we share it with each other, we know the other one's looking or thinking. So we start formulating our thoughts. And then when he comes back with his opinion, we can have that board discussion and that board share then about maybe Lori was off base totally that day. And so that has to go away. And there's no reason the board should discuss it any longer. Or maybe Lori has a valid point and we should be considering it moving forward.
Right.
A lot of times we grind things up forever and ever and ever before we really know if we can even do them or not.
So it's my interpretation by reading the RCW that in order to ask for a legal interpretation by the stickler in the letter of the law, it either has to come from the board, in other words, the majority of the board, or the board chair. So the board chair on any year can ask for opinions individually without support. But a non-chair has to actually have a second vote. I think that's ridiculous, which is why I've always said if either of my seatmates ever want a legal opinion, I'm a yes on any issue related to county business. But just for the record, I believe it has to be a second vote. But if we make it a standing policy, then there's no chance of getting denied and or potentially not getting your question answered. But I do want to take staff out of it because I don't want staff getting treated in the middle of any kind of way, in the middle of any kind of conflict. It's not their fault. It's not their problem. They're just trying to do their job. They shouldn't have to play he said, she said, or play the telephone game and pass on what somebody said. Let's put it all in writing. Let's put the question in writing. Let's put the answer in writing. Let's let all the commissioners know the question. Let's let all the commissioners know the answer. That way they can deem for themselves the relevance. That's all I'm saying.
So yes,
Okay.
to the public or the PR opinion request. At the end of last meeting, Commissioner Zoller said that she was going to do some homework on whether or not we can go forward or go do homework with going forward to the Superior Court judge. Do you have an update for us?
I do not.
Okay.
I got involved with Dallasport Community Council and a few other issues and my time was gone. So,
Goes by real fast.
yes, it
That-
does.
that happens.
It does.
I have to honestly admit my time was gone this week, not so much with work, but I had to put away 17 tons of hay, my once a year that I guess you might call it my vacation for 3 days if you want to count putting 17 tons of hay up a vacation. Yeah, that was 4 hours of my day for the last 5 days. So yeah, I will look forward to updates on that and we'll have our homework going forward. Any other board pending, any other staff issues that we need to address? Do we have radio on Thursday? Thought I heard something that we had radio, but I don't see it in our minutes.
I think it's a week out,
Yeah, I don't see it on the calendar anyway.
like the 20th, maybe.
Yeah, it's a week out. Okay. No, I just got an email today that was talking about, we all probably did. There was a question that the person wanted the radio to ask us. So I was just kind of thinking it was this week. But it's not, it's next week. So no, good enough. Any other pertinent, anything before the board, before we recess for our workshop on Thursday? It's gonna be a short workshop. We start at 10 and end at noon. Okay, no? Okay, then I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, I would make a motion to adjourn our regular meeting, noting that we will be back in session Thursday, July 13th at 10 a.m. for scheduled workshop.
And I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to adjourn until Thursday morning. Any discussion? All those in favor of adjourning, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Thank you everyone on internet land for watching our fun-filled broadcast today.